If cities are full of pigeons, why don't we just eat them? It sounds like a strange question at first, but the more you think about it, the more confusing it gets. Pigeons are everywhere. They gather in parks, sit on buildings, walk through train stations, and seem completely comfortable living beside humans. In many cities, they are one of the most visible animals on Earth. So why are they treated like background noise instead of food? The answer is not simply because pigeons are dirty. It is a story about history, farming, disease, pollution, class, culture, and one very powerful human habit. Once we decide an animal is disgusting, it is very hard to see it differently again. Let's start with the surprising part. People did eat pigeons. For a very long time, pigeons were not seen as useless city birds. They were valuable. In ancient societies, pigeons were raised for meat, eggs, fertilizer, and messages. They lived close to humans because humans wanted them close. In parts of Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia, pigeon keeping was common. Before modern refrigeration and industrial chicken farming, pigeons had real advantages. They were small. They reproduced quickly. They could live in towers or special structures called dovecotes. They did not need huge fields. And unlike some livestock, pigeons could feed themselves by flying out and returning home. That made them practical. Young pigeon meat is called squab, and squab was once considered a delicacy. It was tender, rich, and served in many traditional cuisines. Even today, pigeon is still eaten in some places. You may find squab in fine dining restaurants, traditional dishes, or farms that raise pigeons specifically for food. So the real question is not, why don't humans eat pigeons? The real question is, why don't most people want to eat city pigeons? And that is where the story changes. The pigeon on a restaurant plate and the pigeon pecking at a wet French fry outside a bus station are not the same thing. Farm-raised pigeons are controlled. Their food is managed. Their environment is monitored. They are processed under food safety rules. City pigeons are wild urban animals. They eat whatever they can find: bread, trash, spilled snacks, insects, seeds, and food waste. They drink from puddles and gutters. They walk through streets, rooftops, subway entrances, and garbage areas. That does not automatically mean every city pigeon is dangerous, but it does mean you do not know what that bird has been exposed to. And when it comes to food, uncertainty matters. A chicken from a regulated farm comes through a food system. It is inspected, transported, stored, and sold according to rules. A random pigeon from a public square does not. This is one of the biggest reasons we do not eat city pigeons everywhere. It is not just about the bird. It is about the system around the bird. Modern food is built on supply chains. We eat animals that can be raised in predictable conditions, slaughtered at scale, inspected, packaged, and sold consistently. Pigeons do not fit that modern system as easily as chickens. Chickens grow fast. They produce lots of meat for their size. They have been bred for farming. They are easy to feed in controlled environments. Their entire industry is designed around efficiency. Pigeons are smaller. They produce less meat. Raising them at scale is possible, but it is not as efficient as raising chickens. So over time, chicken became cheap, common, and normal. Pigeon became niche, and city pigeon became unthinkable. There is another layer: reputation. The way we see animals changes what we are willing to eat. A cow in a field may look like food to some cultures. A cow may be sacred in others. A dog may be a companion in one country and viewed differently in another. A rabbit may be a pet, a pest, or dinner depending on where you are. Pigeons went through a major image collapse. For centuries, they were useful. They carried messages. They were raised for food. They were even admired. Some people bred fancy pigeons as a serious hobby. Then cities changed. As urban populations grew, pigeons adapted perfectly. Buildings became artificial cliffs. Ledges replaced rock faces. Human food waste became an endless buffet. Pigeons multiplied in public spaces. And once animals become too common, people often stop valuing them. The same bird that once lived in a dovecote became the bird blocking sidewalks, leaving droppings on statues and crowding train platforms. That is when the nickname flying rat became popular. It is a harsh phrase, but it tells us something important. People were no longer seeing pigeons as livestock, wildlife, or companions. They were seeing them as urban pests. And pests are rarely appetizing. This is partly psychological. Food is not only nutrition, food is trust. We want to believe our food is clean, safe, and separate from waste. City pigeons violate that image. They live right in the messy overlap between nature and human trash. They remind us of pollution, germs, and crowded streets. So even if a pigeon could technically be eaten, most people feel an immediate emotional reaction. That emotional reaction is powerful. Disgust is one of the strongest forces in human food choices. It protects us from danger, but it also shapes culture. Once a food becomes associated with filth, poverty, desperation, or disease. It can take generations to change that perception. This is why "we used to eat it" does not automatically mean we want to eat it now. Another reason is law. In many cities, you cannot simply catch pigeons and cook them. Urban wildlife is often protected or regulated. Local laws may restrict trapping, killing, or selling wild birds. Public spaces have rules. Food safety laws have rules. Hunting laws have rules. So even if someone wanted to turn city pigeons into dinner, it would not be as simple as walking into a park with a net. There are also public health concerns. Wild birds can carry parasites or diseases. Most of the time, casual contact with pigeons is not a major danger for healthy people, but eating an animal is different from walking past it. Food safety depends on proper handling, cooking, and knowing the source. With city pigeons, the source is unpredictable. They may have been exposed to pollutants, chemicals, heavy metals, contaminated food, or disease-carrying environments. Again, this does not mean every pigeon is poisonous. It means the risk is harder to control, and modern consumers usually prefer food where the risk has already been managed before it reaches the kitchen. There is also the problem of effort. Imagine catching, cleaning, preparing, and cooking a city pigeon. Now compare that to buying a chicken breast from a store. One is uncertain, legally complicated, socially uncomfortable, and gives you a small amount of meat. The other is cheap, easy, familiar, and accepted. Most people choose the second option. That is how food habits become locked in, not because one choice is the only possible choice, but because it is easier, safer, cheaper, and more socially normal. But here's the twist. The pigeons in our cities are not completely separate from the pigeons people once valued. Many city pigeons are descendants of rock doves, the same species humans domesticated. In a way, they are not just wild animals. They are the leftovers of a long relationship between humans and pigeons. We brought them close. We used them. We bred them. We fed them. Then our cities changed, our farms changed, our diets changed, and we stopped needing them. But they stayed. That is why pigeons feel so strange. They are not fully wild in the way a hawk feels wild. They are not fully domestic in the way a chicken feels domestic. They live in between. They are survivors of human history. And maybe that is the real reason we do not eat them everywhere. Not because pigeons were never food, not because pigeon meat is impossible, not because every city pigeon is automatically deadly, but because modern city pigeons sit outside the categories we trust. They are too urban to feel natural, too wild to feel safe, too common to feel valuable, too associated with dirt to feel appetizing, and too inefficient to compete with chicken. So instead of becoming dinner, they became part of the scenery. We step around them. We complain about them. We feed them even when signs tell us not to. We photograph them. We ignore them, but we rarely think about how they got here. The next time you see a pigeon walking confidently through a city square, remember this: that bird is not just a random pest. It is a reminder of an old partnership between humans and animals, a partnership that changed when our cities changed. Once, pigeons lived in towers because we built homes for them. Now they live on ledges because we built towers for ourselves. And maybe the reason we don't eat them is simple. We stopped seeing pigeons as food